So I'm really excited. I'm going to do something that me and my partner Dan over here have been thinking about for several months now. And it's one of those things where, because of our very unique backgrounds and our skill sets that we have, which we'll explain to you very soon, that I'm excited because of the influence that we can have for anyone that is going to and will listen to us, because I feel like you can't contain this amount of knowledge, this amount of education, this amount of like true passion that we have for helping out others, veterans and active duty service members specifically. But I'll start off with a quick introduction. To my left, I have Dan Sepulveda, the broker in charge for Real here on the wonderful and beautiful island of Oahu. Dan?
Cool. Appreciate it, Chris. Like I said, my name is Dan Sepulveda. Currently, I'm the principal broker. All good. Principal broker for Real Broker LLC here on the island. Been with the company for about 6 months now. It's been an awesome journey to this point. Definitely in a leadership role now with this company. But it's been amazing, because spending 5 years in this industry of serving clients and buyers and sellers and all that. Now I get the opportunity to do the same, but also, serve agents, educate agents, teach agents, help them rise in their business, which has been a real gift. So
that's awesome, Dan. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chris Lee. I am the loan officer here at the Veterans Mortgage Source, and really just out there trying to educate as many people as possible about the home buying process, and also on top of that, just educate veterans on their benefits, and then utilizing our knowledge from our experience in the military. And it's really exciting because it's still fresh in our minds.
Right.
We're actually not even going to talk about benefits today. We're going to talk about leadership. So in terms of leadership, there's really a art form, and then there's a science behind it. And before we start talking about leadership, let's talk about some of the things that brought us to where we're at today.
Yeah. So I think with my journey, so I'm a Navy veteran, a corpsman. For those of you that do not know what a corpsman is, the Marine Corps does not have any kind of medical personnel, so they tag in the Navy and all the Navy corpsmen to serve on the front line. So up until the Marine Corps rewriting history, which is another discussion, a Navy corpsman was on Mount Suribachi raising that, in the iconic flag raising. A Navy sailor was on that mountaintop. A lot of people don't realize that. Marine Corps kind of rewrote things recently, but that's okay. We still go down in history, but that's what we do. So I spent 4 years with the Marines out in 29 Palms. Did a couple tours overseas prior to PCSing out here to the island. Gradually rose in the rank in the Navy, made Chief Petty Officer back in 2018, prior to separating entirely in 2020. That was kind of my journey. It was a fun one. Yeah, a lot of stories.
I'm really excited about those stories, especially because hearing from literally an infantryman's point of view, it's always good to have like that refreshing point of view from your number one, really subject matter expert in support, and that's the Doc. So, Doc, I appreciate everything you do for us. And then, but a little background behind me: I'm a 14-year Army veteran. Originally enlisted as an infantryman, and then commissioned as an infantry officer. I have combat tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, and I'm a Purple Heart recipient. And it's one of those things where I have had a huge passion in leading men into combat, and it was literally some of the best days and some of the worst days of my life. And I wouldn't rewrite it any other way, right, because of the experiences that I've had. It all culminated here in Hawaii with my last tour of duty with 2 rifle company commands up in Schofield Barracks. And I met some of the greatest people in the whole world. The 2 greatest people that I met have been my beautiful wife, Olivia, and then my son, Weston. My son is named after one of my best friends who passed away in Iraq in 2017. And I always look at it as a way to honor his memory and also a way to have this wonderful reminder of the man he was. And it's one of those beautiful things, beautiful sentiment. It was not my idea. It was my wife's idea to name our son Weston,
Wow.
which is a pretty cool thing.
That is really cool.
Yeah. And I loved every moment of my service, but I recently got out in 2021 and have made the successful transition into mortgage lending and becoming a loan officer here at this great company. And it's one of those things where I am shoulder to shoulder with a bunch of other veterans who have proudly served, and then we have the same intention in mind, and that's to educate veterans on their benefits. One of their best benefits is the VA home loan and the ability to buy a house.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, I think it's really neat. Just kind of like the emergence of our skills, the emergence of our talents, and the transition from service, whether it's the infantry, whether it's the medical field, into real estate, the lending side or the realtor side. It's really neat to kind of like reflect and dissect it, because I came to the realization in the last couple of weeks that I have been serving, I have been helping, I have been I think service is the word. Folks, for I don't know, I joined 2010, so for 12 years now. Even prior to that, I was at McDonald's, right, as a kid in high school. But I've been selflessly serving, for 12 years now, and that's not like a thank me for my service kind of thing, but it's something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. In the days of being doc, running up and down battalion, ruck marches, taking care of this guy who dropped out, getting him in the truck, sprinting to the battalion, doing it again for the next 8 hours and 15 miles or whatever it may be. I mean, it was absolutely miserable. And to your point, the most valuable, most amazing memories to my life to this date. And it's just really cool that, we get to take those kind of skills and we bring it over. And also to your point, like, now we just educate. Now we just make sure that people are making, educated and informed decisions on something that's really going to change their lives. I was like, I know I speak for myself, and I'm sure you can agree. Real estate has changed my life. Poor kid from Chicago suburbs, never in a million years should I own a piece of Hawaii land, right? But I've been very fortunate, own multiple now. And it's cool to just, be out there, be in front of veterans, be in front of service members, to be able to, take the veiling off their eyes and show like, hey, this is possible.
oh yeah.
So it's been a cool transition. It's funny to say, like, well, what are your qualifications? Oh, I'm an infantryman. I got one hell of a shot. I'm like, I'm a doc, man. I can, save your, blown off leg. But in all honesty, it's just the service that it's an easy transition.
That's a fantastic point, Dan. And if you'd like really think about it, it's not that we have the skill sets that make us really good at real estate, that make us really good at finances, that make us really good at what we do right now. It's the fact that leadership is a people business. Mm-hmm. And the simple fact that we're always in front of people. We were always taking care of people. We were always responsible for people. It gave us that sense of responsibility and a sense of, it's not entitlement. I would say it was more of a sense of obligation that we had to take care of our people before us, sometimes before our families. And it was completely selfless. And I know that the one thing I was looking for outside of the Army was finding those selfless people and being able to give back to this community that's given me so much. One of the greatest things I ever remember about us first meeting is I had mentioned that I was transitioning out of the Army. And all you wanted to do was give me nuggets of knowledge of how to transition make sure I have everything set up for when you transition well. Hey, make sure that you're getting everything checked out from a doc to you. You're telling me, I got to do this. You're making me a checklist. Like, you're like, tell me to, like, I think you even told me, like, hey, get out your cell phone, write this in your notes. I was like, calm down, doc. So I was like, I was there, and I do owe a lot of those, like, very, like, well thought out tips, because it's one of those things where you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I've used that line so many times, and it's like, you don't know what you don't know. But, you know, and we always use the cliche terms like, there's no stupid questions, only stupid people. Mm-hmm. And then, man, I feel real stupid when I was transitioning out.
Right.
I felt real stupid when I was in the Army. For the first 8 years I was in the Army, I had no idea I could buy a house. I had no idea that I had a benefit that allowed me to buy a house, much less the opportunity to buy a house. And I was like, because my leaders, you know, they were great, fantastic, tactical leaders. In a war, pick them 100 times out of 100 times. But back in garrison, when it's like, hey, I'm looking for housing, maybe I should go buy a house. No, BH, your basic allowance for housing, that's for rent, bro.
Yeah.
Roger that, sir. Roger that, sergeant. Whatever you say. Right. It's like, he's right. I'm wrong.
He's got my best interest in mind.
He's got my best interest in mind. But you know better than anyone. Mission first.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we got to go train. I can't be having you spending time looking for houses and stuff when you could be helping me plan this FTX, be helping me plan this next field problem, be helping me take care of your guys that are back in the hospital, that are back on the line. You know, these are times, that's where your time is the most valuable, in front of people.
Right.
And so we are selfish in that regard. But now we're in an industry where, like, we can take that selfish knowledge and just spread it back out into the formation. And that makes me pumped.
Yeah. I mean, it's super exciting. And so kind of tying it back to leadership, right? You know, even in today, you know, you don't have a battalion or a formation to run anymore. You know, I don't got my platoon or my company to take care of anymore. Yeah. You know, I've got no sailors in my charge. But at the same time, we still have the amazing opportunities, and something I wish I would have known greater back during my time as active duty, in being in leadership positions is you know, the power of listening, right? You know, and what we failed at, what sergeant failed at, what chief failed at for me, or first sergeant in the Marines, is listening, right? Is active listening, right? Listening is listening to understand, listening to comprehend, listening to be like, hey, you know, tell them, all right, so you're looking for housing right now, like, what do you got going on? What do you got in mind? You know, if that soldier says, "Oh, I just need something close to base so I can respond to my wife, you know, who's pregnant right now, you know, in 5 minutes," I'm like, okay, well, I'm listening, I'm hearing what you're saying. You know, maybe base housing suits your current situation better because of the factors that you've determined, right? But Chris went in there and said, "Hey, I'm looking. You know, I hear I got this VA home loan. I'm looking, like, I hear people who are making money when they're PCSing. Sergeant, do you know anything about this?" It's like, "No, dude, that's for rent." Right? He's not listening to you. He's not hearing what you're saying. He's listening to respond, not listening to understand. Right? And it's something that so many folks failed us, and then, you know, coming to the realization, then it's just like, you know, I'm also curious because we're imperfect, right? I'm also curious to how many people I failed, you know, at least back then. But now I can honestly say, like, I mean, I was in a situation recently where, you know, I was in front of it was a listing presentation, if we're going to put titles to it or, you know, terms to it. It was a listing presentation. They're like, "Dan, we want you to sell a house." I'm like, "Cool. Tell me about your goals. Like, what are you trying to accomplish here?" "Well, we're PCSing to Virginia. We really want to secure this home." I'm like, "Awesome. That's valuable information, right? Because what does that really tell me? That tells me timeline. That tells me the little I know about your lane and in industry, you know, like whether or not we need to sell, or do we need to provide proof of, offsetting that debt. Every lender is different. Let's talk about your goals and how we're going to achieve those. Right. I was listening, and I was making sure that I was tailoring my plan to their goals, right? Because I was listening to their what they're really trying to do, not just what they were telling me at the surface level.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so many leaders, so many folks just fail to do that. Like I said, listen to understand, not listen to respond.
Oh yeah. And then that makes more sense than because I feel like even though both our occupations were, combat leaders, we had our expertise, we had our level of understanding. We were getting to that. We were already at that senior level leadership level, and then it becomes political.
Yeah.
You know better than anyone.
Yeah.
It becomes political at that point, and then the best interests of the troops may not necessarily be in the best interests of that group, or that person, or that leader. And then how do you stand out as a leader? Well, you do things that buff up your evaluation report, that buff up your resume. And then it's very difficult sometimes, even finding the true motivation to serve once you're that high up.
Yeah.
Because the ones that are truly about, with the troops, they kind of stall out.
Yeah.
And because they aren't willing to bend.
Right.
And so you want that ability to, have that flexibility to still look out for the troops and then still do well as well.
Right.
But it got to a point where, I just knew that I wasn't affecting soldiers like I should be. I wasn't affecting, yes, I was coming up with great plans. Yes, I was listening to my commander's intent. Yes, I was reaching the end state, but at what cost?
Right.
And I sometimes found myself saying, hire wants us to do this, so we're going to do it.
Right.
And instead of defending the best interest of my soldiers, defending the best interest of my family's time,
right,
my free time, and then I was realizing, wow, maybe I can get into a position where I can affect someone's life positively in one or a few more ways, And I know you're always a big advocate of, after service and the benefits for those who have honorably served. And I love that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where, we can always talk about that too. It's hey, there's so many huge benefits of more than just buying a home.
Yeah.
They can literally take, the VA can take care of you and your family and help set you up for success, whether it be education, whether it be finding a job, whether it be doing all these things that, hey, I'm just going to do this on my own.
Right.
The pride in us says that we can. But especially in the world today, any type of direction, any type of help that you can get will be value added.
Mm-hmm.
And there are programs that are there to help guys out like us. There are guys that have honorably served and have put in their time, whether it be for 4 years or whether it be for 40 years. There's those programs that can help them be successful.
100%. So it's a lot of, it's funny, I deployed, went down range a couple of times. I see a lot of my Marines and fellow corpsmen reading books and stuff like that. I didn't pick up a book for 30 years, right? Actual reading books was just not, I'm just those people are weird. And in the last, honestly, since I got out of active duty 5 years or so, books have been everything to me. I read so much every morning. My routine is 10 pages a day minimum. But two things came to mind as you were saying that is one, Mr. Jocko's extreme ownership, right? And we'll get into how extreme ownership is an important factor in seeking, utilizing, and benefiting from the benefits that you've earned, And then the other one, which gets in the way first, is ego is the enemy.
Oh yeah.
Right. So you're a decorated combat veteran, right? Purple Heart recipient. We've talked in the past about how we didn't come home with everybody. So there's always that feeling of guilt and like, oh, these are reserved for the guys who double amputees, or for the families that their family member didn't come home, and it's a noble thought. It's just kind of poor in execution, right? Because the reality is, well, one, let's acknowledge the fact that a single life lost is 1 million too many. A single life is one too many. But two, their families are taken care of. I'll speak to amputees really quick. A lot of people are like, well, I don't want to use this benefit because that's for my guys who got blown up or something like that. I always joke around saying that I've got at least 2-3 friends who are taken care of very nicely. They serve their country. They stepped on the wrong patch of land over in Afghanistan and didn't come home with both legs. Those guys are getting taken care of though. And now when I see them, when I link up with them, it's all smiles. It's all trash talking again, as if we were back in the trenches and just shooting it. And the beautiful thing is, amazing foundations like Gary Sinise's, Lieutenant Dan, his foundation like legitimately built my guys' homes. You know what I mean? Like, to accommodate them too. We're talking like countertops that are, a fraction of the size, stairs that are more accommodating. Those guys are getting taken care of. So never let your ego, back to my point, never let your ego get in the way of like, well, that's not for me because, I'm fine. Or, those guys had it worse. It's a very poor thing. And sure, I mean, like, that's a hill that you can go up, but like, don't die on that hill because those benefits aren't for you. We're talking about these that are, you know what I mean? We're talking about an entire different sector of benefits that are untapped for you. They've got their own pool. They've got their own pots of, opportunities. We're talking about what is available to you. So never let your ego get in the way, your pride get in the way from taking full advantage. And the other piece is there's a lot of negativity out there of like, oh, the VA did this and the VA is not helping me with that. And I'm on the other side of the equation. I'm just like, first off, like, our generation of veterans have got to realize that America bends over backwards for our veterans, right? I mean, there are so many multiple pots of money that are just there, that taxpayers pay into, Veterans Affairs, DOD, whatever it may be, compared to the Vietnam era, where men were drafted to a war halfway around the world that, that's another story, whether or not we deserve to be there, drafted to a war they didn't want to serve in and came back to a nation that spat in their face. Like, we didn't have that. No. On September 12th, 2001, everybody was flying an American flag. Yep. And every single service member who went downrange and came back was welcomed with, I mean, I get chills. I'm at this moment, I'm thinking about Maine. I'm thinking about flying into Maine, coming back from Afghanistan, and the row of, I literally got goosebumps. The row of just, service members and families who are just like, welcome home, hero. I felt like a tool. I was just like, dude, you're wearing a Vietnam, ribbon. Like, please don't thank me for anything. Like, I mean, it was just so, I don't know. I mean, like, one of the most amazing feelings I've ever had. And that's a direct reflection of the other opportunities that are out there. Right? Like, whether it's the disability system, whether it's vocational rehab, whether it's how you can stack years on top of college. I mean, there's so many amazing things out there. But going back to books, you've got to take extreme ownership. You've got to go find the education. You've got to go seek the right circles. You can get in your Reddit groups or your Facebook groups and you can be like, oh, the VA screwed me over again. Like, look at this, and woe is me. Or you can be like, hey, these guys sound like they know what they're talking about. Like, this guy over here talked about how he just helped 5 people. He's not his job, but 5 people get 100% disability. I'm gonna go talk to him, right? But you've got to take that extreme ownership. You've got to take that initiative to go seek that information. Mm-hmm. Like, we weren't victims when we said, I promise to defend, right? We weren't victims. So playing the victim card when you're out, you're just like, you just gained a bunch of life skills that the majority of a civilian population will never have. Oh, yeah. You are a very strong, powerful, man's man. You know what I mean? Or woman. I'm not saying it's not a gender thing. I mean, men and women alike in the service, you have some skills that people will never have outside of service. Yeah. And then when it's all said and done, we want to play victim? No, get back after it. Take ownership. First sergeant's not in your way. Sergeant's not in your way. Chief's not in your way to say you can or cannot do this. You literally have all the freedom and ability to achieve everything you've complained about for your 4, 5, 10 years of service. And now you're going to get in your own way?
You bring up such a great point, Dan. And it's to the point where, not to typecast or to personify that angry veteran who blames everyone or who is saying woe is me and whining about not being served like they should deserve to be served, I guess. You kind of picture in your head who that person is. And it's any leader will know it's about the resources, the support, and then the follow through that we receive from our buddies. Mm-hmm. No one has ever said that I did this all by myself.
Right.
Why would you, after your service, say, I'm going to do this all by myself? When there's so many resources available to you, you just need to go out and seek it.
You have to seek it.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it's interesting, right? It's tribe. Right? Oh, yeah. It's tribe. We had, when we were E3s, you were prior enlisted, right? When we were E3s, we had our tribe, right? In the Navy, we call it the third class mafia. Well, I guess that was E4, but we had we had the third class mafia, right?
And, sham shields.
Yeah. So, and that was our tribe, and we leaned on each other for the good, the bad, the ugly, whether or not we were, dragging you through a hike or stepping up and saying, oh, I think he's medical, when he's passed out drunk in the barracks, right? We had each other's back, right? Yeah. And that same tribe and those same relationships are still out there. They still out there for every single veteran ever. And the cool thing too that nobody ever talks about is that once you step out of service, there's no rank. Yeah. You know what I mean? I mean, we're sitting here today, right? Yeah. I mean, you're a high-ranking officer, and I'm, on the enlisted side, and there's no rank, right?
It's funny that you're better than me, so it's okay. Yeah.
But now you get to tap in. If you serve 4 years and you get out as an E3 and E4, that's cool. Come to one of us. We don't wear rank. There's no rank in these conversations. Lean on that master chief who retired. Lean on that first sergeant, that sergeant major, because they're going to be a plethora of knowledge, and they're so tired of playing the game for the last 20 plus years that they're just like, Chris, thanks for coming, man. Let me have a man-to-man conversation. Let me just have a conversation of zero authority position. Let me take all that and throw it out the window. Let me help you out, right? And those guys are out there, those all service members, men and women alike, they're out there who just want to give back. They're not leaning on that rank anymore. They're not leaning on any positions. They just want to give back and educate.
That's really good, Dan. And honestly, just because I think you hit it right on the head, right on the head of the nail. It's to the point where those that get to their high positions of authority got there because of their experience. They got there because of their credibility. They got there because they were charged with the potential that they could influence others. Mm-hmm. You're promoted off potential. And then that potential is because you truly do care about others. You truly do care about serving others. And then that amount of service has translated so much into what you do and what I feel like I want to do. And it's one of those things where, I appreciate, the time you took to sit here with me and discuss these little things. Yeah. It's one of these great opportunities where, I feel like we can literally talk about so many things and all to benefit, the veteran,
Right.
the active duty service member, the spouse who has no direction, the kid who's, sergeant major dad is always at, headquarters, the person who wants to help out their father who is a Gulf War vet and he's worried about what benefits he has because he's coming to that age. It's one of those things where I know that you are just diving into as much literature as you can, and I'm diving into as many resources as I can to help these well-deserving people out.
Right.
And then I feel real blessed to honestly have that ability to bounce ideas off of you. And then this is a great way to kind of push out that influence that we can still do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a cool conversation to keep going. One of the things that kind of just came to mind, like you're talking about, like Gulf War or whatever. Like, I've got a lot of buddies, a lot of like non-military, right? A lot of civilians. Next thing you know, you get talking about World War stories or whatever, sea stories, and they're like, oh yeah, actually my dad was in for like 10 years. I'm just like, cool. Like, what do you get out as? Oh, he's a captain, Army captain. I'm just like, awesome. And because I'm in the industry, I'm just like, how many times has he used his VA loan? He goes, what's that? And I've been bugging this particular buddy of mine. I'm just like, dude, just open up the door, a conversation between me and me and your dad, right? So, in his specific case, all the kids are about to be out of the nest, right? And it's going to be him and the mom, and they have a house, they own a house. I'm just like, dude, I was just like, the untapped opportunity that dad has right now is generational wealth for you children. You know what I mean? Like, and they're in Nebraska of all places, right? So, I mean, talking about like leaving generational wealth, a quadplex, probably $200,000-$300,000 in Nebraska, something that the kids can inherit. I mean, talk about leaving something behind for your children. These are the opportunities we have, right? But that man, Army captain of the 90s, 90s, 80s, was probably never educated.
Yep.
As an officer.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Never told anything, right? And he's got this, to this day, he's got this certificate of eligibility burning a hole in his pocket, could get up to 8+ doors to leave behind generational wealth for his children. And how amazing of an opportunity. Would you be a lot happier if you had a quadplex just waiting for you?
I'd use it pretty well.
Generating a little bit of side income.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? How amazing would that be? And these are the opportunities that we have. But unfortunately, like I said, a lot of people want to play the blame game, the victim card. And it's just, like I said, it's just so unfortunate. Find yourself in the right circles, having the right conversation, having conversations like these to exponentially change and elevate your life. Don't stay in the trenches, the woe is me, everything sucks. We've already lived that life. Our life now is opportunity.
Yep. And I'm glad you mentioned that, Dan. Thanks for mentioning the widening up your circles, and then obviously keep those that can give you that knowledge, can give you that experience, and can give you that sought after education, because we all need it. And it's one of those things where I appreciate you coming here today. I think that's a really good topic to wrap up on. Sure. And then have the ability to just expound upon and continue moving forward with. I want to do this again very soon. I think that there's too much experience between the two of us that we're just only reaching and scraping out the tip of the iceberg. Mm-hmm. There's so many things that we can do to help out, not just even veterans and active duty service members, anyone that wants to buy a home, anyone that just wants to do better for their community, anyone that wants to honor the past. I feel like there's always a lot of honor in that field and in that realm. And then we were just both happen to be in the business of people. Mm-hmm. And then I will always be in the business of people. And I know you will always be in the business of people. And it's one of those things where I'm extremely glad to have met you, and then to continue doing this.
Likewise, man. It's all about learning and growth. I mean, what else are you doing in life if you're not doing those two things?
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.